Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I've got a jelly roll pattern, a new jelly roll pattern that I worked out, and that's what we're going to stitch up today. I have most of the numbers worked out, so this is going to be a long section of the quilt, and I'm going to use jelly roll strips, and I'm going to repeat this several times to make the whole quilt. I'm going to use a batik jelly roll today. Hoffman makes these cute little batik jelly rolls. They call them Bali Poppies. There's 20 pieces, so we're going to need 2 of them for our quilt. We also need some background fabric. I'm going to use solid white, and this is actually 2.5-inch strips also, so that's what we're going to use. The last thing we need is an accent fabric, something with a little zing or a little pop. I could use almost any of these blues or purples, but I want something really dark, and I think this will be the best. So this is everything we need. Let's get started. So the first step is to pop open these poppies and see what the fabrics look like. I think we can use all of them. I don't think there's any that won't work in the pattern I'm using. But for your jelly roll, if you have one where you had some fabrics that were the exact same color as the background or the exact same color as the accent, you would want to put those aside and not use them because we only need to use 31 strips right now. I'm going to be cutting from my pencil sketch here, but you don't have to worry about keeping track of all these numbers. I will have the pattern written up for you, and there will be a link below that says free pattern, so you can look at that while we cut. I've got 6 of the strips here, and they're still folded, and I'm going to cut these 37.5 inches. This group here, there's 25 different strips, and we need to get 2 pieces at 20 inches off of each one. So I'm going to make 2 cuts here, so I've got 20 inches. So now we've got all the cutting done out of the jelly roll. We've got these pieces, we've got the long ones we already cut, and these are the 9 we set aside earlier, and we're going to save these for either a pieced border or for the binding. We're going to need a yard of the accent fabric. It's always a good idea to iron up your fabrics to make sure there's no wrinkles in them before you cut. Now the accent also gets cut into 2.5-inch strips. So I'm going to fold it in half and cut 4 layers at a time. Now on these long cuts, I like to use a weight to help hold my ruler down. Now we need to do some subcuts. So I need some 10.5s, some 6.5s, and some 2.5s. You always want to start with the longer piece so that you can make sure you get those long pieces out of your strips. If you start with the shorter ones, you might end up with a bunch of small scraps and then you can't get enough length to get your 10.5-inch pieces. There's my 10.5-inch pieces. Now I'm going to need to get some 6.5s. There are the 6.5-inch pieces. The only thing we have to cut now is all of these strips get cut into 2.5-inch strips. So I'm just going to swing the board around and I can cut them all at the same time. So there's all the 2.5-inch squares. All of the accent is cut up, and now all we have to do is get our background and do some subcuts on that fabric. The background pieces have real easy cutting. So all we need to do from these background strips is cut some 14-inch, some 16-inch, some 18-inch, and some 20-inch pieces. Okay, all of the background fabric is cut, and we've got a few strips left over, and we're going to use those for a border on the quilt. So now we are ready to start sewing. This is going to be a lot easier for me to show you what it looks like if I lay it out on the big table here, because a lot of these strips are really, really long. So I don't want to just take them right over to the machine because that's going to be a little bit difficult. So we've got these in pairs. So let's start with this guy. We're going to put the longest accent piece in the middle here. And we're going to put 2 little accent pieces on each end, way down here. And then we're going to put white pieces on the ends, and I'm going to have to look at my chart to see which piece goes on here. The shortest ones. These are the 14-inch pieces. These are going to go on each end. So this is the middle strip of the unit I'm going to make. Now we're going to take another pair of batiks here, and I'm going to use a different color. So I don't want to use this same color right next to it. I'm going to pick a different color. This one is going to go right up next to this, but the accent piece that goes in here is the one that's slightly shorter. So that's going to go in the middle. And again, 2 square accents on each end, and then a white one. So we're going to need the white one that's slightly longer. So I'm going to keep building this out so you can get a better idea of what it's going to look like. So this is one unit of the quilt. The easiest way to stitch this is to pick up one row in order and take it over to your sewing machine. The easiest way for me to keep these in order is to set them on the top of my machine and just pick them up one at a time and stitch them together. And I'm always going to be adding to the right side here. Every seam allowance will get pressed, and I'm just going to finger press it toward the accent. Now I'm going to add the next piece, and I'm going to keep going till the whole row is done. Again, finger press toward the accent. That will make it easier to match our seams later on. So there's the first row. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of them stitched up really quick. All of these long rows are all sewn together now. So this last one fits right here. And now we're just going to want to stitch all of these together into one unit. So here's how I'm going to do that. We only have to match up seams right here and at the same spot down at the other end right here. So I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm going to put a pin in right here so I know that those match. And I'll do the same thing at the far end. And then I'm going to put one pin right in the middle here. If you think you need more pins, then go ahead and put more in. Just use a very careful 1/4-inch seam the whole way down the long row. This sewing goes really fast. It really helps if you open this up and finger press the seam. I'm pressing the seam towards the center. So I'm going to kind of open this with the palms of my hands and run my fingertip or my fingernail right down this seam. This makes the ironing so much easier on these long jelly roll strips because they can be tricky to iron. So I'm just going to make sure that it stays over that way, open up and press all the way down. I'm going to lay this back down here and pin the next piece on. So this piece is going to go on here. Now, to keep your units nice and flat, alternate the direction that you're stitching. So I stitched this row from the top down. I'm going to stitch this row up this way and then the next one down, and that keeps the patchwork just a little bit flatter. Here is how I like to iron a strip unit like this. I've finger pressed everything, so the seam allowances are already laying pretty flat. So I'm going to smooth it out with my hands first, then I'm going to get the iron and dry iron it a little bit. Make sure it's looking nice and flat. I might even put my yardstick up here to make sure that it's not curving. Once it feels pretty flat, then use your steam. This first strip unit is all done, nice and flat. So we're going to want to make 4 more of these so that we have a total of 5 strip units. So I'm going to go ahead and get those stitched up. They're all done now. And there's only one thing left that we have to make. and that's going to be the leftover pieces that we had are going to make this long row here, and that's going to go between all of the strip units. So this is that longest piece of the jelly roll with the accent pieces and the white, and that's going to fit right between these units here. So we're going to put one of those in those empty spots, and I'm going to get the whole thing stitched up, and I'm going to put a border on and get it quilted. I have all these really nice shades of purple and lavender, and for this quilt I want the quilting to show. So I'm going to want the thread to pop on here. So the question is, how much do we want it to pop? That's going to show up quite nicely. This purple, it's just a beautiful rich shade of purple. It's a little bit extreme. This one's a little bright. I think this will be the best choice. I have the line dance quilt all done. Very happy with the way those lines are dancing on the top of the quilt there. That's what really shows up to me, is those squares making that wavy pattern there. Now I quilted it in a curlicue kind of a pattern. It's got swirls, it's got circles, and you can really see that even from far away. The accent color is pretty critical here. You want to have that nice and bold, and I think I did a good job here, and you can see these in the middle. It gives it a nice central focal point there. Very easy to make. It turned out 73 by 87, so it's a generous throw size. Lots of fun to make. Thanks for watching our video today on how to make the line dance quilt. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you don't want to miss any of our upcoming tutorials, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And be sure to keep sending me pictures of what you guys are making. I love to see your projects. Happy quilting!